Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. How's it going? Tell me, all good. There's been a few challenges thrown out in the first half hour, and I'm going to have to maybe deviate from my script a little, but it ties in to what we're trying to do here. But just at the outset, just to thank Joe for the invite, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here this evening talking on this very, very important subject. And when I was asked to come here, Joe, the first thing that I thought on was a meeting that I had a number of years ago in Stormont. I brought up 12 Fine Gael politicians. A lot of them had never been to Stormont before. Some of them had never been to Northern Ireland before. And I brought them up to meet with the then First Minister and Deputy First Minister Peter Robinson and the late Martin McGuinness. And I remember Peter Robinson starting his speech, and he started off by saying, "It's great to have you here, you're very welcome." And he said, we need to work on our relationship. And then he stopped talking, and he started again, and he says, no, he says, delete that. He said, we already have the relationship, it's what we do with it. And I think those words were very profound. I reflected on them a short time after that, and I was chairman of the Good Friday Agreement Implementation Committee at the time. And I started thinking back to the progress that has been made in Northern Ireland and in border areas such as Donegal, Cavan, Monaghan as well over the last 15 to 20 years. And I think what we have to do is we have to continue to look at different ways, different avenues of building on the great progress that has been made with regard to the peace process. And when I think back as well to the referendum in 2016, whereby the majority of people in Northern Ireland did not vote to leave the European Union, the majority of them wanted to stay. I thought only of the peace process. That was the only thing that was on my mind. And anything to set that peace process back in the aftermath of that referendum, during the negotiations now, is a backward step. And I just want to say very, very clearly that the government's stated position is we want to continue to see an invisible border. And I know a lot of words were thrown out after the referendum, language like soft border, frictionless border, all these type of fancy terminology. But the reality is the gains made by over the last 15 to 20 years have been very much as a result and as a consequence of that free movement of people, free movement of goods and services, and also free movement in regard to tourism as well. And when you consider the Tourism Ireland function is very much looking at the possibility of having a more tie-up between the Causeway Coast and the Slieve Atlantic and the Wild Atlantic Way. So I just want to say that at the outset. The other thing I want to talk about is in relation to what we already have. We have an enormous, strong relationship on a northwest basis here between our own Donegal County Council and Derry Strabane Council. Now, this may have come up at one of the Brexit discussion meetings, but I just want to repeat it here again. Before Brexit, over the last number of years, there's been a very warm, cordial relationship between Strabane Derry Council and Donegal County Council, and there is a Northwest Strategic Partnership. I want to acknowledge Seamus Neely, the CEO who's with us tonight, and also John Kelpie from the Derry Strabane Council, where there's been a strong strategic approach, which takes me on to the challenge that was thrown out to me at the beginning in terms of roads. Fundamental to the future of this region is road access. And that is everybody I speak to, whether they're living in Dublin, whether they're people who've moved to San Francisco and they come back on holidays, or whether it's somebody coming from Lisburn up to Dunfanaghy or Rossnowla. Roads and access is the constant conversation. And if we want to be honest to the input that we've given to the peace process, and if we are going to be credible around peace dividend, we have to have that vital piece of infrastructure coming into the Northwest. And it has to be done on an all strategic way. There's no point us talking about the A5 in isolation. There's no point us talking about Derry bypassing Omagh and then just going down as far as Auchnacloy. We have to figure out the bigger piece of the jigsaw, the N2, Dublin, Monaghan. We have to think about Letterkenny, Lifford. We have to think about Ballabafay, Lifford, those two major roads coming into the county. So the role and the work and the deliberations that's been carried out by Derry, Strabane and Donegal County Council has ensured that that vital piece of infrastructure is now firmly as part of the conversation within government. And I know we will be working and hoping beyond hope in the not too distant future to have the Assembly up and going again, that we can start re-engaging and talking about that very important conversation. Can I also say, in relation to the Strategic Partnership Group, it does require leadership, and it requires leadership not just at a political level. And I'm seeing the strength of the leadership across Northern Ireland. In fact, during the sectoral meetings in the aftermath of Brexit, there's been a number, I think there's been over 300 meetings. We had one in Letterkenny. The majority of the attendees came from Northern Ireland into Letterkenny, and there is a yearning for leadership on the Brexit issue and obviously the continued protection of the peace process. And I just want to reiterate again to the parties in Northern Ireland, and I know they've been working really hard to find a solution to get the Assembly up and going again, but it's vital for both sides of the border to have a strong Assembly, a strong North-South Ministerial Council mechanism to ensure we continue the important conversations. Can I also say, in relation to the Irish language, and I don't want to get into a fight that I'm not in. My father always reminded me of that, if there's somebody fighting, don't be joining them. But what I would like to say in relation to it is, I find it disappointing that the language is caught up in that space. And when I think on Monday, I went down to the local GA club in my own parish in the Doonhill and Downings. Over 100 people were learning Irish from all over the 6 counties, Monaghan, Cavan, Sligo, Leitrim as well. Over 100 people in learning the Irish language. And I've been to places like East Belfast, where leaders like Linda Irvine has been promoting and teaching the Irish language. So the Irish language should transcend politics. And what I would say to Edwin tonight is, the Irish language does not belong to any political party, north or south. And I understand how this issue can end up in the political dominion, but it does not belong to anybody, and it cannot be used as a political weapon either. But what I would like to say also is, the Irish language is a gateway to our past. It's a gateway to our history, and we can learn a lot about it. And we also have to remember who protected the Irish language in years gone by. Even people of the Presbyterian faith were were ambassadors and leaders around the promotion of the Irish language. So I would, in Dennis's words about the Irish language, I was given an opportunity in 2014. It was a wee bit of a hospital pass at the same time. The Taoiseach Enda Kenny asked me to be Minister for the Gaeltacht, and he asked me to do a job for the Irish language, and I wasn't fluent. In fact, I was absolutely terrible. I remember listening back to a TG Cahir interview I did in September 2014. It was absolutely cringeworthy. Having spent 16 years learning how to read it, learning how to write it, and I couldn't speak it. So, ma hatrach is mo. My message, my biggest message, for the Changa. Bawailam ma ahandas a goal chigna dinge a lig a ve bogu and Changa chontase. I would like to give recognition to the people who are moving the language forward. Agus bawailam ma boyes a goal chigna dinge a ve ag folum no ve ag affolum. And I would like to give my thanks and also recognition to the people who are learning or relearning it and being allowed the space to do that. It is so important. But my focal skur, my final words, but while my beas a goal chigna dinya lig na politary a lig sa tushkart erin, I would like to give my thanks to all the politicians in Northern Ireland who have brought the peace process to where it is at the moment. Fahonja and Chamontis for the commitment, Fahonja and Jigrasa for the dedication, agus Fahonja and Sar Ober Atajanta son and Froshes Siahan for the great work that is done on behalf of the peace process. And it's something maybe Southern politicians fail to do in public arenas, that we do not thank the people in Northern Ireland and the political leaders for the work that has been done and changed not just the 6 counties but also this region and this country. Agus Bawailam Mabuihes a goal heg Joe agus a fern a leg for Hanyan Koru. I'd like to thank Joe and his team for the invite to this event here tonight. And Bawailam Mabuihes a goal hugav for Hanya and chance a lorch liveshe for the chance to speak to you. Agus Tamig Sul Gomor leis na keshene ave a golarai and ye na orage. And I'm looking forward to the questions that will come after the speeches here tonight as well. Gora mila mila mayagov alay. Thank you.